Good morning, Donatas, and welcome to the Low Carb Paleo Show.
Morning.
Good morning, Mark. Comment ça va?
Good morning. I take it you are both wonderfully well?
Yes.
I am.
Excellent.
All right. So, Donatas, thank you for coming on our show to talk about your passion about healthy living. And to get started, could you tell us about your personal and professional background?
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm very excited to be able to join and share and learn in the process. Each time I'm learning all the time in communication with people as well. So about my personal background, I started being interested in healthy living and sort of a human potential, I think 14, 15, over 16 or 17 years ago. And it kind of happened gradually. First, I realized that I don't want to eat so much unhealthy foods. Then I thought that a certain, I would say, restrictions and wasn't how we supposed to, I would say, live. So I would always seek for something different and interesting and alternative. And then by moving places, a new knowledge and I would say skills come into play. And then that kind of turned into the passion for literally dedicating my life for healthy living, human potential, and sort of enhancement. So not in the very strict and religious way, although I had those years when I was starting, just everything new, super excited. I would dive in very deeply, but kind of now everything balanced out and I see things a bit more clear. And I think 15 years ago I became a vegetarian. 7 years ago became vegan. Tried raw vegan diet for 3 years, and not because of the sickness, but more of that deep interest in nutrition, in healthy living, cleanse, high energy. So that was a very interesting experience, and through that, a lot of other information came about, like sort of like a natural cleansing process, biological cycles, herbal sort of supplements, and movement and spiritual practice. So that's kind of that was my activity and deep interest. And so when I was I'm also, so my background is in hospitality and culinary and kitchen management and consulting of the sort of hospitality industry and private clients as well. And so when I was doing this traditional work, at the same time, I was very much into the healthy eating. So eventually I just had to give up of that traditional culinary and hospitality industry side, and then focus more on the conscious and plant-based and holistic approach to eating and healthy sort of programs. Over a course of a few years, did some professional training in health coaching, in life coaching, got certified, then worked in wellness places and also centers for I think around 7 years, and then practicing plant-based cuisine for over 10 years as well. First, like personally, and then it kind of became more professional approach. Yes, and
Okay, so looks like we have an international group here. You're originally Russian, but you've been all around the world.
half Lithuanian, half Russian. I'm from Lithuania, but my
Okay,
father is Russian. So
okay. But you've lived and traveled all over Europe, and then you ended up in Asia, right?
yes, in Bali right now.
Okay, good. So now we know about your vegetarian, vegan, and raw cuisine. Can you explain how does the keto diet fits into all of this, and how do you implement it?
Yeah. So the interesting, there's just a little short background how actually ketogenic diet came into my life. I never thought that I would do high fat, which I don't practice much current day because of other projects. But before, it was quite intense time understanding how to prepare plant-based ketogenic diet. So I think over 5 years ago, I got introduced to this ketogenic diet. For it was first, I mean, from the person that I've learned, it was used for a person with a brain tumor, and so in order to not feed tumor with cancer with the sugar, just feed off, get the energy off the ketones. So that was and then particularly for the brain tumor, that worked quite well at that time. And I worked at the center where they were kind of trying to apply plant-based ketogenic diet for weight loss, for sugar balancing, and some cases, if needed, under the medical supervision, strict therapeutic ketogenic diet. So that, for me, being in the plant-based and introduced to the keto when I thought that it's only animal and very high fat diet, that was for me an experiment, and at the same time like exploration and research. So that's how it's actually all started. And pretty much it's the same approach like you would apply ketogenic diet. You need to count net carbs. You need to count your, in the food that you're using. Then you need to count total net carbs per day, depending whether you're doing therapeutic approach, which is usually 12 to 15 net carbs per day, or up to 50 grams of net carbs per day, which still helps to produce ketones in the body. Of course, depending on how much you eat, but ideally like 35, 40, that's kind of safe range, and it's much easier as well. And so that would be the same methods. You would have to measure your GKI, glucose and ketone index. Briefly, I will not go into so much, but basically it's measuring your glucose level and the fasting in the morning, fasting blood measure, and dividing by 18, and then dividing by the ketone number that is visible if you're using blood measure, ketone measure, or strips, or urine is not very effective, so there is also breath. But traditionally, it's better to poke and check your blood. So that will give you an indication whether you are in ketosis or not. And so this is kind of essential to use those tools in order to stay in ketosis and then continue eating foods and see how you react. Because sometimes in theory it's easy, but in practice, some people tend to react to carbs and store the glycogen as well, and also depending on their activity as well. So there is another interesting thing is that people may eat same amount of food and calories, but others they will have more ketones and others less, because they just simply not moving, or maybe eating more than they need. So that was a challenge on the plant-based, and obviously because of all the, I would say, the food has carbs because of the plants. So that would be a quite interesting way of always calculating, because majority of the first year for me, it was focusing on therapeutic approach because there was a need for that in the environment that I worked. Then there was a bit lighter for the weight loss and sugar balancing. And then the last 2 years, I think it was 16, 17, I think 15, 16, 17, even, no, yeah, 16, 17, 18 was, I would say, full-on therapeutic approach, which really shifted the understanding about actually plant-based, but also raw vegan, because at that time, alternative oncologist, actually from United States, wanted to have a strict ketogenic diet with a specific GKI. So wanted to be 0.9 or 1, which is actually quite hard for a continuous period of time, even on the animal-based ketogenic diet. And so that's kind of it's I would say now for me, if I would do it for myself, or I would do it a bit lighter, it wouldn't be so challenging. But I certainly recognize and I'm pretty sure that it's not an easy, in general, ketogenic diet is not easy. And when it comes on the application, it becomes more challenging. But what I've noticed easier is to actually simplify the recipes with the 3, 4, 5, and when I say 3, it's sometimes very basic food, and then 5 to 7 ingredients. So then it's easy to count, it's easy to measure, and it's easy to notice how you react to, and how the fat is being absorbed as well, digested, and the carbs, because it's very important to get into ketosis is to remove all the glycogen, is to burn all the glycogen in the muscle, liver, and the cells. We still have some amount, but we are running more on the ketones at that point. So
if I may,
please, yeah.
On the practical side, as a chef, I'm interested in how what food product do you use to accomplish the keto side? So I know more fatty, so I assume nuts and oils, certain oils and so on. Can you tell us the chef side of things?
Yes. So what I've noticed, first of all, nobody can eat a lot of fat. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, some people, depending whether you're fast or slow oxidizer. So keeping that in mind as well. Sometimes we may prepare something, but then the people can eat 1 time, 2 times, but then on the consistency range, it becomes very challenging. So what I've noticed, the whole food is very important. What you mentioned, nuts, again, overeating nuts is also difficult. Avocado works well, but again, avocado gets a bit boring. So there must be a different variations of that. And so I would start thinking of sushi as an example, a sushi wrap so nori sheet, cauliflower rice, which is low carb, and you can precisely calculate how many grams of those carbs you want in that sushi, which is, it's surprisingly, when you start counting carbs, you can see how much of a portion you can have for 10, 20 or 30 or 50, and then you think, oh my God, how many carbs I eat? This is already a lot during the day, And so, I mean, healthy carbs, I don't mean like pasta and stuff. So that's like and so then of course I would put some avocado in there. And what I liked to add is, so I have these carbs, for example, on the therapeutic, I would try to get 7, depending on how many. Again, another important thing is your number of meals and the ingredients will be determined by how many times people eat, how hungry they are, and how active. So again, I don't know, happily or maybe sadly, I had a great challenge with people that didn't feel their best, I would say. They would come for a specific treatments, and so eating would be not so easy for them. So that was additional. But for the normal, I would say, when people are hungry, it's much easier to prepare something, and then people just eat and enjoy. Otherwise, it's taste buds, etc. So avocado, and then what I would do is I would do a cream, but that cream with, it would be salty from macadamia. I like to do macadamia because they're higher fat, maybe some pili nuts, and just a tiny drop of olive oil, but not too much, not overpowering. And so that amount of fat would be added into the meal. Otherwise, it's very so. In other words, I would mask the fat, if that makes sense. Instead of drizzling too much, cold press oil, which doesn't make sense, and obviously there is no animal, etc. So that would be a nice way of having fiber as well. That's another thing with ketogenic diet, is the fiber that is very important for the digestion. So I would make fatty dressings. That's the way. Or, for example, another way of making is Thai curry or any other curry. So coconut cream. Additionally, a high quality, I would put MCT oil, but not too much. That's the MCT oil.
Yes, medium chain fatty acid.
Yes, so that would help to increase the fat intake, and then low carb vegetables, and so that cream would have already, with the nice lemongrass and other flavors, would help to consume that fat as well. Again, depending on the whether you're doing lighter version of ketogenic or more therapeutic, will determine the amount of fat that you need to put. But what I also noticed, and that was most challenging, is especially with with people who don't move a lot and not able to, I would say, assimilate fat very well. And it's actually, there is a division. You're fast or slow oxidizer. There is balanced as well. And so then I will come to that, and that's the point of me actually sharing that with people in the book, which is the most important thing is actually eating less on ketogenic diet. And that's my personal observation and experience. Having 1 or 2 meals, and okay, if somebody's crazy, you can have like a fat bombs, or some fat snacks like almond butter with some flavor, etc. So an additional fat like a coconut butter is very nice. Not the oil, but the butter. It's also quite nice to mask fat this way. Then it's fine. But 2 meals is more than enough. And
Right.
then the idea, and actually it's much better for the body, is to they convert your own fat rather than coming in fat. So
Hmm. Right.
that's, and the body feels much better when it burns your own fat. So
Right.
sauces, snacks is the easy way. Having a salad with some dark, like for example, um, wilted kale and spinach and some herbs, which is very nice. At the same time, you're getting nutrients
Hmm.
and and vitamins and the fiber. And then you can slice avocado and have a fatty dressing. And this
Right.
way, it's much easier to eat.
Yes.
And then there are I have some recipes with the
Okay.
pancakes, etc.
Right.
So
Right. So, what brings to mind to me is for your clients to benefit from this diet, they must have a healthy digestive system to start with. What happens when your client has an inflamed gut, for example, or they have a leaky gut, or they have a hard time absorbing the good fat? How do you handle that?
well, it's not well, leaky gut. The problem is not just with which is not just absorbing fat. It's actually absorbing food, and usually it's like low energy and a few other kind of, not the symptoms but senses in the body. So yeah, leaky gut is. But again, it would depend on what would be the decision of the person, because I would say I'm not a doctor to say you have to eat vegan or plant-based ketogenic diet. I don't even I don't even say that you have to do ketogenic diet. It's only if people decide that I want to lose weight, and I want to do it in a good way, or I need it for the specific need, and I'm working with a doctor, and ketogenic diet seems to be, or low carb, let's say, uh, is what I need. Then
Right.
I would work with that and see what would be the best way to actually making a certain broth, or there's this very interesting, I forgot the name, but there is it's not even a supplement. It's like a mixture of minerals that helps gut lining actually to heal. I
Hmm.
forgot. I will certainly remember. It was really advised by many
So,
doctors.
so, so my question here would be: do you start by in your process? Do you start by healing the gut before you introduce the keto diet, or do you do both at
Yeah,
the same time?
certainly. Yeah, certainly. It's actually it's very important. Well, some people again, it depends, because it depends what is the condition, because my personal experience was kind of a heavy chronic challenges,
Right.
such as cancer, for example.
Right. Right.
So people pretty much would go through the variety of processes. So they would cleanse the gut, they would take some supplements, and of course look after the gut health. So of
Right.
course probiotics would be taken,
Yes.
and additional you know certain broths that would help the gut lining, for
Yes.
sure.
Have you had clients with, or have you helped clients with like Crohn's disease or IBS or issues like that, inflammation?
There actually was one person, but she was already. I mean, that person was working already with the doctor.
Hmm.
So I remember that I helped with the diet, with the specific softness and specific nutrition and certain texture as well. What is much easier to digest, what is very important actually in the mouth and then the stomach. So, hydrochloric acid is very important. And then, of course, the gut, the final absorption. But then we had that interesting liquid, which is, I keep forgetting, yeah. And so that was specifically for that.
It's not fulvic minerals, is it?
It has fulvic, some minerals as well, but the name I forgot. The actual, it's very famous. It's made in US actually.
So,
It's like
and another question I have is, typically when people are, they have difficulty digesting the food because of their previous diet. For some of them, it's difficult to digest raw vegetables because they can't process that. Do you use enzymes, or how do you handle this?
That's a great point, because even not only with raw food, with any hard food, it could be even meat and animal protein. It's actually quite hard. So definitely enzymes were used quite successfully, digestive enzymes. So that helps in general for people actually who even who eat fast. If they don't have a problem, but they just don't chew because they're always on the go. So I think that's actually perfect. The enzymes, but also what would be, I wouldn't go strict on the raw. I would lightly steam or make them warm and combine certain ingredients that are harder with raw ingredients. Like herbs would be raw, some salads, I would wash them with warm water, so they're not like, how can I say, not cold. And but other ingredients I would grate and marinate, so the fiber and cellulose opens up, so it's easier to actually, again, the first digestion, second, and the third assimilation. And so that would be a very important process. Of course, not drinking in the process of eating, and having a little bit of, if that allows, having a little bit of apple cider to actually, or sometimes even some people would need pepsin in order to balance the stomach acid, which important to have acidic.
Right. So can you tell us about your Conscious Cuisine consulting program? What is it about, and can you explain how it works?
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, actually, I was already getting some inquiries to do. I mean, at that time, I was already doing some workshops and diving deeper into the cuisine and cuisine understanding of like a eating and kitchen and the connection to the food, the history, etc. And with workshops and some theory, it was kind of evolving into a specific approach when people would ask to help with the menu and training of the staff, let's say back of house and front of actually back of house. But then I said, look, front of house is also very important, so everybody is on the same page. And so actually, through a couple clients, I realized that I want to do it. I was very ambitious to do it alone. Then sadly, I realized that I need more people and actually even a partner. But at that time, I would literally kind of see that more like a holistic approach to hospitality, specifically culinary consulting for not corporate, but like hotels, restaurants, companies, or wellness centers, and private clients who would like to eat more, I would say, consciously, and offer that to their clients. So the conscious meaning being aware actually of ecology, nutrition, clean eating, agriculture, the local food, the history of the actual food and diets, and actually how it evolved, eating patterns, um, then times when it's good to eat and when it's good to rest. So it's kind of a broad spectrum of cuisine, the connection that to the food, which is one of the most important things, but not just eating, but getting nourished as well, and looking after the consequences as well. So that's how it kind of evolved into the chef training and the staff training. So everybody is on the same page, knowing
Right.
what's on the menu, where it's coming from, why it's there, in order to communicate with the clients, but also internally knowing. So that would be also going into the, what's the purpose of the reason I wanted to focus on the business as well is because they have a bigger impact. So if the hotel has exposure to many people, I would always like to have, let's say, the management to understand actually why they want to do that, because it was quite trendy to do the vegan and raw and plant-based. Even now, it's actually because there is we have to admit there is a huge money in this right now. Even famous Bill Gates created fake meats, and anyway, that's another topic. So there's a
Yeah.
huge market for that, and I thought like, okay, I'm only supporting whole food in the natural, for even the supplements, or I really like whole, so they being absorbed synergistically instead of isolated protein
Mhm.
powder, isolated that, isolated this. So
Yeah.
that was the mentality behind healthy menu for the property and the education behind it, with both sides, meaning people serving and people preparing, and then of course for the private people as well,
Right.
to personalize that. To some people would actually have a staff, so they would also have to try and understand why they're preparing that for their I would say for their
Employee,
boss, I would say.
boss.
Well,
Mm.
yeah, so that would be more like a private family, etc.
Right. On the
Hmm.
side note, I'd like to say a word about all of these new fangles. Um, how do you say? Kind of vegan meat patties and everything.
Oh yeah,
I
horrible.
personally, I personally think that's a horrible way to look at things, and it remains processed food, and it contains a lot of genetically engineered products. So I applaud your approach to natural, real food and not processed food. Thank you
Yes.
for that.
No, of course.
Um,
Um,
well, a lot of people are being fooled out there, right now, with all these new
you know,
meat alternatives and so on and so forth. And
um,
you gotta be careful what you put in your body. I think nature's done a great job providing everything we need. We do not need to process nature.
yeah, good way of saying is minimally processed. But on that note, is actually that's where I also, when I say conscious cuisine, I don't always advocate vegan. So meaning like people choose what is best for them. Again, specifically. So I always like to look at why, and the reason is actually why you're doing it. You're doing it for your health. You're doing it for animals, or you're doing it for the environment. All three together. But if you're doing something that doesn't work very well, but you're focused on, let's say, animals, but your health is not declining, but it suffers, then it's very actually dangerous. Same way, like you want to fight for the environment, but again, your health. I mean, the most important thing I think in here is actually your health. but being conscious of course, how you eat and what you eat. So that was another focus, and that's where the whole food idea came into play. So I think I would like to just say that when people brought these alternatives, I think it's good, but because it was too fast and not enough education, and it was just like a hype, it's like, oh my God, this is exciting. And it's just marketing again took place, a lot of brainwashing, and, we end up with, again, synthetic and isolated foods, which is good for some time, but still in the long term is not sustainable for the
Right,
health
right.
case.
Now, Mark and I are especially interested in your longevity rhythm cuisine workshop. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so
We already signed up on the 100 years plan, so we're trying to
exactly.
stay healthy until then.
It's a combination. I will say it's a combination of two, um, disciplines. Not the discipline. I forgot the. But basically, there is understanding like longevity. First of all, longevity. Then there is centenarians and longevity populations. Okay,
Mhm.
and then there is circadian rhythm or chronobiology. So
Okay.
the study of the the time, the effect of sun and let's say the moon, and the human in between all of that, and organisms as well, and at what time certain organs works, digestion, when we need to sleep, move, but in the simpler form, we what I think, but also what is um, uh, assessed. There are three sort of cycles in human life: rest, cleanse, build. So during the daytime, we're building, we're eating, we're getting strong, exercising and moving, etc. Then we're coming into the rest phase, yeah, in the evening. So when we sleep, our organs sleep, we're preparing all the certain maybe some toxins, but the most important is like a recovery time. And then we come into that cleanse phase when we, eliminate and detoxify. And so if this process working well, we're already on the very good terms with nature actually. And of course, if we do it with the right time, following circadian rhythm, not necessarily religiously, but at least having the right uh, time to sleep, the right time to eat, digest, assimilate, cleanse. This is actually, and at the same time, there are other things, of course, managing stress, doing activities like exercises. So there is the whole bunch of, and the thing is, circadian rhythm is a fancy sort of name because it's based on the 24-hour cycle. We are binaural beings, so we kind of sleep and being active daytime, sleep at night. But those observations had been present in Chinese medicine, in Ayurvedic, in all ancient traditions. They would know when to sleep, when to eat, what is not good. So they would understand. That's how the kind of this, medicine, let's say Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine got developed, is observation, trials, and study. And so that's why rhythm and longevity, obviously, we all want to live long, but most important, quality. And so that's why I called it longevity rhythm. So both of those disciplines are merged together. And that goes, for example, understanding of um, study of longevity populations. And you probably heard of blue zones. By this time, probably everybody heard there are different parts. The most studied. There are, of course, more places and more people living up to 100 and more. That's why centenarians. But I personally love this very much because it's generational studies. It's not current. We need to study current changes as well. All these genetic manipulations, what's happening right now, the stress, the Wi-Fi, all of the things that are actually new within 50, well, 70, but like 50 to 40 years, what actually happened, and very, very rapidly, and what's the effect. We need to study that for sure. But we have genetic memory and genetic potential. That's why the fasting works. That's why certain diets works. That's why certain cleansing works, because our body remembers that. And the reason is because we evolved doing that. And so longevity for me associates with our ancestral wisdom and practices. That's why when they had been studied, they realized, wow, they have so many good habits. So nice movement. And by the way, nutrition is only 1/4 of that if
Right.
you do pi. So there is a purpose and meaning, there is activity, there is a connection, there is nutrition, there is movement. So there is a few elements that are necessary for the longevity. Food is just as I said, the fourth part. So that's why I got like very much what is good. Of course, living in different climate and different, you would eat again locally what people ate. And but another thing is, what I've discovered is, even if you live in, let's say, Asia, you don't have to eat like Asian so much. You can still eat closer to European foods, because you would feel better. Your genetically, you would be more adaptable to that. Some people are okay, but it doesn't mean that if you live in, let's say, Middle East, you have to eat that specific food. You wouldn't. Eventually, your body would tell you that that's not your sort of answer where you grow up, like most of your time. So this is another, again, that comes on observation as well. But mainly, it's not eating too much. Again, it's they have a way of like eating 80% of your usual size, so not 100% what you put, but 20% less. It means you're not overeating. Breaks between the food, whole food all the time, activity, sleeping. So that's why I got very fascinated about longevity, and then circadian rhythm in combination. And then it goes with types of diets, the understanding of the environment, the movement and relaxation, natural cleanse and detox, metabolic typing as well, understanding what is your metabolic typing and actually what foods are better and worse for you. So that's important. Then local and seasonal cuisine, fermentation, culinary understanding, what kind of cuisines around the world and how they ate. Obviously, hands-on food workshop. And then what means surviving and what means thriving as well with the food. That's also, I think, is very important. Types of cooking, so methods as well, from healthiest to the least healthy, and meal plans and specific menus. So,
Okay.
you know,
I like to
also,
address two aspects, actually three of them. So first, fasting, then the circadian rhythm, and last, exercise. So first of all, what's your what's your take on intermittent fasting? How does it work, and how does it help?
mhm. So the interesting thing is that intermittent fasting can be it's like some days you fast longer and other days you eat normal. They call it, there are different ways of doing it, but most popular, let's say, is 5-2. So 5 days you eat normal, and 2 days you still uh, eat window of food, and then 14 to 16, 12 to 14 hours of not eating, but also even limiting some calories. And then time restricted eating is when you, well, feeding or eating is different from intermittent fasting is that where you would eat shorter window each day and then longer not eating. So it would go to 14, 16, and actually, well, not ideally, but 4 or 5 days doing 18 hours is really beneficial. So 18 hours not eating, and then you would have 6 hours of eating only. So maybe 2 meals, and then maybe other days you would do a bit bigger window of eating, maybe a little bit with a snack. And also depends on how many calories you consume, and the nutrients are most important. So that would be the, those two kind of things. They're slightly different. And then there is, of course, fasting. And fasting, it's 1, 2, 3 days. I mean, if you want to reach autophagy, then you would need to, sometimes it's less than 72 hours, but scientifically they've proven through the practice it's 72 hours in order to achieve the benefits of autophagy. So I think it's really great tool to have time restricted eating. I usually don't eat breakfast, but if I eat breakfast, for example, I have only let's say lunch or late, like an early dinner, but then I wouldn't eat longer, and vice versa. Some people eat dinner and lunch and no breakfast, or some people lunch and breakfast and no dinner, and I think it has many benefits actually.
Right.
So
Right. I typically have a good paleo breakfast, and then late lunch around 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and then nothing until the next day.
perfect. There you go.
That's my routine. Since I'm retired and I don't, I don't work in the kitchen physically, which, it's a lot of, you're burning a lot of calories. You're working hard. I had to scale down on my intakes, so to speak, and reduce the amount of calories coming in. And I discovered that I could do very well just by having a good breakfast, not with the typical American, not the cereals, not the just a paleo breakfast, and then a lunch, typically, like around 44 something, and include some protein because paleo diet, and always have a salad and fruits on the side, and then nothing until the next morning, until my next breakfast, and that works for me. So other people may want to try a slightly different approach.
And that's a very interesting thing, is that, like, some people, when they say, oh, it's better to not, it's actually much better to listen to yourself, because as long as you have that fasting window, and it's so much better to sleep with an empty stomach rather than eating later in the morning because you ate heavy in the evening.
Right.
That doesn't help rest and the detoxification. And that's the most important thing actually at night, is to rest, have a deep sleep and recovery, all these 5 REM sleeps, and then wake up actually refreshed. And then, so that's a great thing. Plus, from what I hear, you have a good balance of carbs, healthy carbs, and the protein and fiber. That's another thing, is what fulfills us. You can have empty calories, very little nutrition, and no fiber, and you're going to be like, sluggish and heavy. And that's what sadly happens.
Right. So I want to approach the exercising side of thing. What kind of exercise do you recommend? I sort of assume that, coming from your background, you'd be more into maybe yoga or Tai Chi or something like this instead of hardcore exercise. And what is your opinion on that?
First of all, I will say my personal experience. I never say no to some kind of sport, and especially when it happens randomly. That's amazing, because it kind of it's excitement, and it's a little bit of a shock, and that's how we get stronger. And then I do random. I try to do jogging at least 5 times a week. Sometimes some weeks are 7, some
Mm.
weeks are 4 and 5 times. Jogging, not running. But then 1 or 2 days I do running until I can't even breathe. That kind of makes me also stronger and more resilient. So those type of like it's not a hit, but random shocking kind of a bit harder exercises, and then some kind of weight which is a bit more like, so it's not similar. So that also I tend it tends to help me. And before I would cycle all the time. Now I don't cycle so much. I ride a scooter, so I try to jog all the time. And yes, yoga. And yoga, I can't do long yoga. I do short, 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. My favorite is 5 Tibetan rites. I don't know if you
Right.
heard, but it's
Yes. Yes.
incredible. Many people, I mean, I personally love it. It really
Yeah.
pumps all the blood, keeps me straight, amazing. Then sun salutation. This is also
Yes.
very nice.
Yes.
And then there are other ways. There is this. It's called like a 4-minute workout. I've learned from my friend. She follows Zach Bush. I don't know if you heard of Zach Bush. It's a
No.
very. I would highly recommend this guy. He's medical doctor, environmentally focused, alternative approach, and he combines everything: nutrition, movement. So he has this workout that basically sit up 10 times. Well, you do sit up, then you do a certain hand movements, but you all the time breathing through the nose. So 10 times sitting, 10 times lifting arms without moving shoulders, and then 10 times raising arms like that as a circle, but then this way also 10 times, and then this way, but fast 10 times, and you do 3 sets like that, and it's
Right.
around 4 minutes, but you always breathe through the nose, and that helps to oxygenate, that helps to boost immune system, that helps to circulation. Sometimes, and actually not sometimes, almost every day I do 1 minute power breath. And so I breathe in, and I do that 60 times, 1 minute, through the
Right.
mouth and sometimes through the nose. That hits me like 5 espresso. Really. Yeah, really. It pumps the blood, you get a sweat.
Right.
1 minute. I mean, there is no excuse.
Right.
And then I always try to, like, if I see the stairs, I run up. If I'm on the beach, I try to run on the beach. I try to do the hiking if I'm in nature. That's why. So all sorts of things. That's what sort of activity, movement and activity is highly recommended. But they also proved. I mean, they researched 10, 15 to 20 minutes, like 15 to 20 minutes of exercise in order to do the cardio. When you start sweating, that's like not the minimum, but that's optimal movement per day if you do that every day. It could be 10 minutes, but you need to get a little bit of a sweat. You don't have to break your, joints and muscles, but that cardio need to, like, you can do sit-ups. It's very good. You can do a little bit of pull-up. We can do some yoga as well. Like, for example, there is a very nice, it's actually a bit challenging, but hot yoga.
Yeah,
And
that's not
that's
for me. Not for me. It's just not for me.
yeah,
But
then
that's fine. I mean,
cycling is great.
yeah,
Swimming as well, and even doing the movements in the water as well. It's
yes,
surprising because gravitation is less, and you can improve your flexibility this way. So if somebody guides me, I can do like 1 hour workout. But I
right,
personally like short and effective. Not
right,
because lazy, but because I just can't concentrate on 1 hour workout.
right. So, what about relaxation? Do you support or encourage meditation or,
Yes.
or taking a nap.
Speaking of a nap, 24 hours are divided in three sort of like hourly breaks. So let's say 8 8 8, yeah. So we sleep, then there is a certain activity, and that's where you can take that nap, which is actually um, observed and confirmed contributes to the longevity. All these
Mm-hmm.
people who are waking up very early, they get 10 15 minutes nap, not falling asleep and but like literally closing their eyes. I tried it myself during the day. It boosts the energy like, oh my God, for 3 hours. Even if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't sleep, you wake up usually when you go to sleep early, you wake up at 5:36. I mean, if you go 9:30 before 10, you can't help
Mm-hmm.
yourself. I mean, that's just, and so daytime this nap really helps. Meditation, if it's silent, it's
Mm-hmm.
great because you're able to go internally more. I
Mm-hmm.
must say it's very hard for me. I have too many monkeys in my head, so I'm trying to oh man, this is just and so for me I try to listen to the music, guided meditation, and what helps me is jogging. It's like, so I listen to my breath. So when I do that, it really helps me to clear up. I try to do silent 1 minute, 2 minutes, try to increase that because it's very, very important. But those type of like pauses through the day are
Mm-hmm.
also again researched and confirmed. Like if you pause and reflect and slow down and do mindful eating, mindful walking, counting steps, those type of breaks are very refreshing for the mind, even if you
Mm-hmm.
can't sit and do 5 minute meditation
Right.
or contemplation, looking at the moving of the trees and leaves when the wind blows, and just
Mm-hmm.
being aware of those sounds, that's already stops your chattery mind. And so
Right.
those type of things is again, there have been used for many times by spiritual people.
Right.
Contemplation, meditation, movement, even movement, when you focus on how everything is like flexible and you breathe, that's as well
Like
from
uh, like like Tai Chi, for example.
exactly, there you go, tai chi, qigong, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Tell us about your book now. You're working on a book.
Yeah, quite long. That was lack of concentration. That's what I need to find a way how to. But basically, because of that practice with, I would say, raw vegan and vegan ketogenic diet, and in general, just literally diving in and studying this keto diet inside out, I again, that's, I mean, I agree with the doctors, but I also have my opinion through observation is that ketogenic diet is not sustainable. Number
Mm-hmm.
one. Ketosis, on the other hand, is beneficial and effective, but there is no money in this because people thousands of years didn't have food or had limited amount of food, so they would naturally fast, and so
Mm-hmm.
they would burn fat and produce ketones. And so that's the magic behind it, is actually how to be metabolically flexible. That's the idea actually, and that's what I like about it, and that's what I would like to share with people, is actually how, if you don't have food, how to be okay. If you need to be in ketosis, how to actually extend period of time without being too hungry, but then when you eat, you have a nutritious, because it would be plant-based keto, nutritious, full of fiber, and fun. You can even have a little bit of dessert, to be honest, and that dessert,
Right.
of course, it's made in a special way, but then you're
Yeah.
still producing ketones. Again, depending on how what is the need of that ketogenic diet. So bringing more awareness of like the sustainability, the metabolic flexibility, and actually the effect. This is, instead of because there is a way of like, and I've met so many people who actually harmed themselves with a high fat diet,
Hmm.
especially if it's a lot heavy on animal food. I'm
Yeah.
not again, I'm not saying everybody has to be vegan, but
Mm.
it's already known that too much of animal protein, and then some people, it's not good. But also some people tend to eat some cheeses and other things because
Hmm.
of the fat content and protein, but too much lactose converts into glucose. So people
Right.
actually don't lose fat very effectively because it's too much lactose. Plus,
Mm.
it's allergic. And so,
Mm.
yeah, so that pretty much book is not keto diet, but keto adapted body. So that's
Mhm.
the idea behind it that I really want to. Of course, there will be recipes there, but more of awareness of your own intrinsic tool
Mhm.
being in ketosis
Cool.
when needed.
Cool. Sounds good. Let us know when it's out so we can have you back. I on during this difficult time for most of the world, I'm curious to see or to hear how do you holistically protect yourself from the COVID-19?
Yes. So, mm, first of all, for me personally only, so that's not like what I think other people they need to probably research and consider what virus is in general, and that there are different viruses, and that viruses existed for millions of years,
Mm.
and so they always change. But at the same time, with humans, we're able to resist, sometimes not very well. So immune system is very important for fighting any actually virus or disease. So what I personally, I mean, thanks God, but I didn't have, although I knew some people who had, and I've heard, but thankfully my mother, who is actually in Brighton, she lives in UK, she didn't have. My grandmother in Lithuania in lockdown, she didn't have. My auntie, she didn't have, and my um, brothers, like a family, like a niece and nephew, they're in Ireland. They also didn't have. So there was something that I start noticing is definitely number one is fear and stress and anxiety. This is very important to actually reduce or eliminate, or at least have it at control, like controlled, because that's acidity and that's contraction. So that's not great for cells and immune system. Sleep, that's another major booster of the health against actually disease or virus, is actually helping your organs to recover and have a deep recovery sleep, which is very, I mean, it's essential. Without sleep, I mean, that's why a lot of chronic conditions also develop, is because of the sleep deprivation and disturbed. Then I would say, I mean, in here, I get natural supplements. So vitamin C from the food, vitamin D from the sun. Luckily, I have in Bali enough sun, so I get at least 10, 15, 20 minutes a day at certain time when the sun angle shines, by the way, everywhere in the world, from 10:30 until 11:30, maybe from 10 until 11:30. That's when it enters the skin more effectively. And if you have a good cholesterol level, vitamin D is produced. And not taking a shower, and I feel all the time very energized, and I never actually had vitamin D deficiency. But this is what I think, me not being a doctor, but everybody speaks, the vitamin D required daily intake is essential, especially for people who don't have enough sun in their country during the winter. And now, obviously, because of COVID. And vitamin C, also bigger amount. Some doctors, they even say at least 2 grams per day. 2 grams. So that's not something what you see in the pharmacy. It's somebody who's like, okay. And to be honest with you, I had my personal experience, and I had I've seen people and I heard doctors when there is a I would say necessity, it's great to do good quality, of course, supervised vitamin or mineral IV, but not all the time. It's just to supplement necessary minerals and vitamins, and then continue with the diet. And I think that's really, really helpful when it's needed in that time. A good IV. And then oxygen. So, for example, in England, I give an example of my mother. She always has open windows, even when she sleeps, not very wide, but she gets this fresh ocean air and oxygen. And I remember when I was always like, my mother would say, okay, open a little bit, so I would always have some fresh air. In here, I don't use AC. My doors are always open, although it's never less than 24 degrees and daytime is higher. So it's quite hot,
right.
I must say. And so, oxygen. And then movement is very important because the lymphatic system must move. That's where, we need to eliminate toxins from the sewage system, which, that lymphatic liquid is more than the blood. So if we have a stagnated lymphatic system, that's taxing our immune system, obviously. And so this is very important. The oxygen is important. Those essential supplements, some vitamin E as well. But I wouldn't, like what I personally would naturally do, I would check my blood first. Not just because of the virus, but in general, what is missing? Like a full nutritional profile, and then support that supplement to the balance, and then move into the whole food diet. Whole food. People can choose what diet they want, but that would be, I've heard, and I personally don't because I think I have it from the food, and I was never deficient from zinc, but zinc is important as well. Calcium, that's kind of a good point to view. And then some people need to check their ferritin level, how they absorb
iron.
So those and B12, obviously. B12, my God, this is go-to. Thankfully, I didn't have. So that would be important thing, and just really like having a stress at bay. Liquid as well, a good water.
Yes.
This is very important, especially high quality vegetables, and hopefully they're organic, so you get those minerals that alkalize the body. Because these days, if you drink bottled water, it doesn't hydrate, it doesn't get into the cells. So there's an extracellular and intracellular fluid, and with the high quality minerals, we hydrate our body. And that's another part that I think is overlooked, is we think that we drink a lot of water, but we don't have enough high quality minerals and electrolytes as well. Right. So that's, I think this combination, I think herbs, vitamins, antioxidants, that's the best boost for the immune system. And cleansing meaning not eating late, having period of not eating longer, moving, and having good digestion, and obviously good microbiome, because without that we can't have a good immune system. So that's where probiotics, but not like religiously eating probiotics all the time. Again, getting into good digestion, where if we eat 2 times, ideally we need to go to the bathroom 2 times as well, or one time at least. If that is impaired, that's already an indicator that there would be some issue with the immune system and energy and other aspects. So yeah, probiotics.
Thank you for that information. My last question, how can we find information about your programs, websites, Facebook, social media?
So I'm actually becoming a hermit. No, I'm kidding. But actually, my goal in 3 years, have no phone, no computer, etc. But no, I have my webpage at the moment is Conscious Cuisine, and now I'm going through some projects that will become web pages. There is one mental health project that I'm currently kind of working on to launch, and another one will be my personal coaching, which is working, but I'm not fully happy about that. So that would be, yeah, not great in marketing.
Okay. Yeah. I understand. I have the same problem.
Conscious cuisine is the go-to at the moment. That
Okay.
is kind of clear. That
So
what
consciouscuisine.com.
Yes, consciouscuisine.com.
Okay. All right, Mark, your turn.
My turn. All right. It's been interesting listening to what you had to say today. A couple of things have caught my attention. Obviously, when you get to a certain age, you start thinking about longevity and how long have you got left in real terms. But I mean, both Alan and I have been relatively good students. I mean, you wouldn't think I'm 80, would you? Yes, back to the question. You mentioned that part of your system for sort of encouraging longevity is working with your circadian rhythm. I can't even read my own writing here.
Yeah.
How do you monitor your circadian rhythm?
Well, first of all, it's good to have understanding what it is, and there is a lot of kind of extensive information around that. But basically, is following your cycle of when you get tired and kind of addressing that, whether it's tired because you didn't sleep and you need to rest, or it's in the evening that it indicates that melatonin kicks in if you don't stare at the screen and 20 minutes before bed. So naturally, like 1 hour before, you kind of tend to feel tired, and that's the perfect indicator to go to sleep. Obviously, not full stomach of food. That will help you to sleep better. Waking up and actually having a lot of daylight, because there is this scientist, Huberman. He's a neuroscientist at I think Harvard, on Stanford, I can't remember, but he confirmed how important is to have daylight and being outside, or just with opened, so it's not kind of in the room all the time, to absorb that daylight, and that contributes to the mind, body, spirit. Spirit meaning like you're kind of, not necessarily very religious, but you feel better, but you don't feel so tired, you feel energized, and you naturally go through the day with the optimal energy, and then you're able to fall asleep better. So that determines also melatonin production as well. So that's the interesting thing of like, that's one of the way how the cycle works, is actually listening to also when you're hungry. And there are different hungers. There is we see, we smell hunger. I even like then there is a stomach. So that's where we have to actually recognize when it's growling, how we actually feel, and that's usually sometimes it's not growling, but we feel like, oh, I need some food. That's kind of an indicator of like good. Usually it happens when how it happens for different people. Eating in the morning and lunch and no dinner. Others, they wake up, they're ready to go, full of energy, they don't need any food. That's another way of like the eating times in your personal let's say cycle. um, so yeah, thirst is another thing is important too, because we can become dehydrated unnoticed, and like because of the busy schedule, and also the activity that we do. So like it's, I mean, obviously we were more active before the, I would say, convenient approach, the office
Yeah.
work, the sitting
Mhm.
work, all of that. We would basically walk, we would do everything by hand, man and woman. So that would be a good way of being active, because if we sit, our organs and our system doesn't function very well as well if
No,
we are
no, no.
static.
Pretty true. Yeah.
And so that's another way of like that movement and work and kind of some people exercising and strengthening cycle during the day.
Mm.
And so it kind of, there is like as I said, three cycles that it's always good to tune into yourself. And
Mm.
but I've met and I've noticed that some people are not aware of those indicators. So that's why it's always good to see. And there is a beautiful graph, and it even shows the liver rest at 3, the deep sleep at 2, the dream starts at 1 a.m. So it's very interesting how they actually addressed and studied different at different hour, different activity in the body in connection with the night process and cycle and the energy and the day, how the sun affects us. That's
Yeah.
another thing of like, that's the sort of understanding of circadian rhythm and chronobiology. That's a very interesting subject actually, and there is a lot of I would say good scientists to research that. There is a Nobel Prize for circadian rhythm, proving how important it is to go to sleep in time, do certain activities daytime, eating at the time when you're hungry, and having periods. So that would that answer the question?
Yeah, it goes a long way to doing so. I mean, for myself, I've noticed that if I continue working on the computer, for instance, to just before I go to bed, then I don't sleep as well. But if I turn it all off, shut the brain, or let the brain sort of cogitate and just relax, maybe read a book or do something different, quality of sleep is far enhanced. But you also,
that's number one, and they all say, get your sleep right, everything else will sort it out. It's and I had just a very short. I had this period when I was like very much like too much. I was stuck. I wasn't able to progress. I thought that I work better in the evening, and I would sleep late and stuff, and wake up. I felt like rubbish, honestly. But as soon as I start listening, and I went back to my natural 9:30, 45, I was already tired. I would literally like, okay, now I need at least half an hour, no computer. I would get, what helps to fall asleep is warm shower, by the way, relaxes the blood flow as well. And then I would wake up very fresh. And then I realized, oh my God, how much tax on the body I'm putting just because of the sleeping.
Yeah. One thing you did mention earlier was that when you wake up, you should have good daylight or good sunlight.
Yes.
Is the corollary of that also true, that when you're sleeping, you should have darkness as much as possible?
Yes, precisely. Because if we have any light, any disturbance, obviously we're not because we evolved again. We evolved from much long sleeping, much how can I say, more years sleeping in much darker environments than um, how can I say, development of the cities
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
lights. And so certainly you're right, and they did a lot, like closed. Sometimes maybe you need to close your good temperature, so it's not too
Mm.
hot, not too cold. Actually, more fresh room is much better than the warm room. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
actually good for the skin and the sleep as well. And then if you need the closing the airs as well, so it's undisturbed. And daytime, if there is no light, just even if it's cloudy, it's good to spend a couple hours just literally absorbing that light. Yeah,
Mm. So ideally bright days and dark nights.
correct. Yes, yes.
Excellent. That really was just sort of the two things that piqued my interest. I mean, obviously everything was interesting, but that was something I wanted a bit more clarity on.
Yes.
And I notice it's getting even later for you than it is for us. So, is there anything we should have asked you and didn't?
Maybe about synthesis coaching. You were interested to ask what
Mhm.
synthesis coaching is. So as I mentioned, during my interest, I wouldn't have this interest, but practice focusing more on the body and nutrition, I realized that everything starts and ends in mind.
Yeah.
We want that or not, but every single thing. I mean, then when I was working with people who had certain challenges, health challenges, everything was here. Anything else I wanted to do and attract and change, it was all mind. That's why I decided to do. It's called psychosynthesis. It's a transpersonal approach to psychology,
Mhm.
and because it recognizes mind, body, spirit. So it incorporates meditation, movement, nutrition, all sort of modalities, but there is a lot of also exercises, and it's the way of synthesizing different practices. As the life is, there is no one thing. We have to synthesize and harmonize those aspects. So synthesis coaching, it would be more coaching and guiding people with the different tools and modalities. So
Mm.
nutrition, spiritual practice in a way of like what's their spiritual practice, not mine, and of course mind. And mind for me now, I mean, is major. For me is priority number one right now. Is mind is yeah. So that's a synthesis coaching in the nutshell is a holistic approach. Um,
Super. Now, this might seem a question that's slightly off topic, and I don't
sure.
think it is in many ways. You've lived in many places, but at the moment you're settled in Bali. Is that because there is something about Bali that you find conducive to the improvements you want to make to your own life and the life of others?
That's a very good question because many people who come here, they tend to think this way. It's a very nice environment. I would say the energy. I mean, people who feel the energy, they say it's crazy. For me, I do feel the environment and energy, but it's not like, oh, I'm like, oh my God. So, but what I've noticed that things tend to change and shift and appear and manifest uh, incredibly fast by hours and by days. This is something about this island interesting. Plus the sort of religious and lifestyle approach, and obviously it's warm, but there is something else in the air. There's the element of constant development, reflection, evolution. There is a sense of freedom, but not kind of lazy freedom, don't want to do anything, but freedom to do things.
Mm.
And I feel fortunate that I was stuck in here during COVID, I must say. So I'm very grateful for that. And it's very inspiring as well. There is a lot of beauty in here, a lot of art, appreciation to the nature as well. The local people, they have a Hindu religion, and it's very nice the way they live in harmony as well. Although there is some problem with the pollution as well. Nobody is perfect, but in general, the sense of lifestyle, I mean, elevated lifestyle, I would say. Very. I don't know if you guys visited Bali.
Oh yeah, it's on the list.
Oh
Yeah,
definitely.
it's on my list too. We'll come and visit you.
Please, please, please. I'll arrange everything. It's gonna be flawless.
All
Everything.
right. Right now it's complicated to get to Bali. I looked into it yesterday, and
I know. It's possible. It's possible. There are some, but I've heard that I mean, local government, because it's a small place, so it's not like I know the government, but there are some I would say talks that closer to June things will ease up, and I also hear about some countries in Europe that closer to June things will definitely ease up, and I do believe that it will change even a little bit earlier. Speaking on the note that we had at the beginning, it's incredible how fast things can change actually, and I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic. So.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, Mark, we need to when things open up, we can organize a common trip to visit Donatas.
Indeed, yes.
100%. Yes, would be great.
Okay, so thank you again, Donatas, for being on the Low Carb Paleo Show. And as we say in Texas, à votre santé, yo.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been really great questions and good energy and connection, genuine interest, and really appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate your feedback and your